Hello, I'm Kate. I'm a 35-year-old woman who just freed herself from her toxic husband. Yes, it was so bad that divorcing him was like attaining freedom. But let me introduce you to my ex-husband, Chris. Chris and I met on a blind date set up by a mutual friend. I will admit that Chris is a very attractive-looking man who has a very charming personality. Right off the bat, he ticked all the boxes that describe the ideal man for me. We shared a lot of interest, and conversation between us flowed effortlessly. We spent a good 6 months just going out on dates without ever making it official. We would take turns planning out the dates, and we always managed to do something fun and exciting. After we made our relationship official, we continued to do that, and after a year of dating, we moved in. It was around that time that I became aware of Chris's financial situation. He didn't make a lot of money, and even though I gave him advice on how to grow his career, he never seemed to take it. But I didn't think it was that bad, considering he made a decent amount to support himself, and I was ready to carry over the rest of the costs. Anyway, after about 4 years of dating, we made a decision to get married, and a year later we decided to purchase a house. We used my name on the mortgage and deed because I had a much better credit score than Chris, and it was the best option back then. In hindsight, I am so grateful that Chris was on board with that decision. It was about 2 years into us being married that I noticed changes in Chris's behavior. He began to get a lot more demanding and stopped helping out around the house as much. Before, we equally split our chores, but then all that stopped because he always claimed to be too busy at work. I still let it all slide because I understood how tiring work could get. I picked up everything around the house, but at some point, it was tiring for me too. I talked to Chris about it, and he would promise to help around, but a week later we were back to square one. It was frustrating, but I let it go because I loved Chris and I wanted to be able to provide for him in every way that I could. Things remained that way for about another 3 to 4 years. Of course, our relationship did take a downfall when it came to going out or doing things for fun because I never really had the time or energy to. Even so, it was still surprising to find out that Chris was cheating on me. I first discovered my husband was having an affair when he had left his phone unlocked while he was in the shower. I didn't mean to snoop, but as I was going to put his phone to charge, I saw a notification on his phone that piqued my interest. The notification was a message from someone named Leah. She was asking Chris how long till he left his pathetic wife to go and meet her in the nearby motel. I was shocked and devastated. Never in a million years would I have thought that Chris was cheating on me. There was nothing in our marriage that indicated that he was cheating. Every night when he got back home from work, he greeted me with warmth and love. Our relationship had been going great and we rarely ever fought. So why had he been cheating on me? I wanted to cry and throw up all at the same time. I felt my world crumble and fall apart. At that moment, though, I decided that I had to put on a brave face, so I left Chris's phone that way and let the chat be open, so when he came out of the shower and checked his phone, he would know that I knew about his affair. When Chris did come out, he saw the unlocked phone and the chats and immediately figured out that I knew. He tried to avoid talking about it, but I was not going to let that happen. "You know I know about your affair. Let's talk about it." "I don't think we should." "Who is it?" "I'm sure you saw enough to know what her name is." "When did it start?" "A year ago." "Can we seriously not do this?" "Why did you start seeing her?" "Babe, please, let's not do this." "Don't call me babe. Tell me." "I don't know why I'm doing it, okay? I guess I just missed the thrill of dating someone who's on the same wavelength as me." "So, I'm not on the same wavelength as you?" "Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. You've just become boring." Excuse me? I mean, you never want to go out, nor do you ever make any fun plans when we do go out. You're always tired, and we practically have no life in the bedroom either. You do realize that I'm always tired because I'm doing all the chores around the house and working. You've never once offered to help me out. Listen, that's just your duty as my wife. I told you to stay at home, but you refused to. That still shouldn't mean that you don't contribute to the house. I'm the man of the house. I get to do whatever I want. You get to do whatever you want, so you cheat on me? If that's what it takes to have some fun, then I will. I was hoping that we could talk about this and maybe start repairing our relationship, but clearly that is not going to happen. I don't think anything will change you being boring. I'm happy to stay married, but I will continue to see Leah. I need to be away from you for a while. I'm going to sleep in the other room. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as Chris the longer he spoke. It was clear that he was unapologetic. Aside from the fact that he didn't even want to talk about it, he made it abundantly clear to me that he did not view me as anything but a wife, whom he expected to do everything for him. Chris had never been one to have archaic views on gender roles, but there he was. I had a sneaking suspicion that it had to do with all these podcasts that he was listening to that involved a bunch of these men talking about how women have become too vocal and need to be put back in their place. It was sad to see Chris turn into one of those men, but it was equally heartbreaking to see him not even realize what he was turning into. I heard the main door open and shut shortly after. I went to the guest bedroom and I knew that Chris had left to meet his mistress. It was then that I finally broke down crying. I knew I couldn't spend the night all by myself. I was alone and hurting, and I needed someone to hold me. I called over my best friend, Cass. Cass heard me crying over the phone and came over in a heartbeat. She brought with her tubs of ice cream, and she held me while I cried for a long while. She didn't ask me what was wrong, but she just silently held me. Once I managed to calm myself down enough, I told her about what I had found out. Chris is cheating on me. What? Are you sure? Definitely. How do you know? His phone was unlocked, and I happened to see him get a message from a woman who asked him when he was leaving his pathetic wife to go and meet her. What the hell? Did you talk to him about it? Oh yeah, I did. He didn't want to talk about it, but I forced him to. Turns out he's been cheating on me for a year because I became too boring. Boring? What does he even mean by that? He thinks I'm too tired all the time and that I don't do anything fun with him because of that. Don't you do everything around here? Yeah, I do. Which he didn't think was a big deal because that was supposed to be my duty as a wife. Wow. All right then. His duty as the husband should have been to go serve his country, but here he is, cheating on his wife. Cass. I'm just saying that his argument is stupid. Did he even try to apologize? Not for a second. He just blamed it on me and went to spend the night with Leah. Good, because I swear if I saw him, I would have wrung his throat. But do you know what you want to do now? Not really. Chris said he didn't mind being married, but I definitely don't want that. Great. I'll help you with everything after that. Why don't you come stay with me until everything settles down? That would be amazing. Thanks a lot, Cass. I'll always have your back, Kate. We spent the rest of the night just relaxing and watching a bunch of our favorite movies. I didn't forget about what had happened, but I did manage to distract myself long enough. The next morning, Cass helped me pack a bunch of my things up to take over to her place. While at her place, I decided to make the horrible decision to look Leah up. I had access to Chris's social media on my phone, so I decided to do a little snooping in on who she was. I hadn't ever felt the urge to go through his social media because he never gave me a reason to do it. I found out that he had muted all notification from Leah's chat, which would explain why I never caught any wind of the affair until then. Anyways, it turned out that Leah was a co-worker with his company, or to be more precise, she worked under him. She was 25 years old, which made her a good 10 years younger than me and 12 years younger than Chris. That was enough to gross me out even more. If anything, that solidified my decision to get a divorce from him. But I needed to get my things in order before I filed for divorce. Cass and I discussed how we could get back at Chris because we were not going to let him off the hook so easily. The first thing I did was to take out all of the money that I had put into our joint account and put it into my personal account, which Chris had no access to. The next thing was to file for divorce. It took a couple of days to get things in order, and in those days, I heard nothing from Chris. It hurt a lot to think that Chris didn't even care to check on my well-being, but then again, what could I have expected from a man who saw no worth in me? I eventually needed to go back home to get some more of my things. When I got there, I saw Chris sitting on the couch. He saw me and walked over to me. "Where have you been?" "Why do I need to tell you about my whereabouts?" "Do you even know how worried I had been?" "And yet I didn't receive a single phone call from you. Don't try to play nice right now. Do you really have to be such a jerk right now?" "I'm sorry, but I only recently found out that my husband was cheating on me because he thought I was too boring for him. And he seemed very unapologetic about it. Excuse me for being rude." "The sarcasm just never ends with you, huh? I was just concerned about you, especially since you withdrew such a large amount from our joint account." "Yeah, I took it because I put all that into the account. Why should I let you spend my money?" "Who do you think you are to do that? You will put that money back or..." "Or what, Chris? You cheat on me with another woman? I don't care." "No, I'll kick you out. I'll move in with Leah and I'll have my sister move in here." That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. "Well, try me if you want. Put that money back in 2 hours or everything I said will happen by tomorrow." I didn't say another word to him after that. I just went to our room, packed up the rest of my clothes and other things, and made my way back to Cass's place. Once there, I told her all about my encounter with Chris. She was rightfully angry with me, and she told me that we needed to contact a lawyer. Cass had a friend who was a lawyer, and we asked him for advice. He asked whose name the house was under, and I said mine. Both the mortgage and the house title had only my name on it. I was the only one who paid the mortgage. It happened to be that way because I worked in a very niche field that paid a lot of good money. I easily made 3 times more than Chris, and we figured that was the best way to go about getting a house. Since that was the case, the house was mine. Everything that the house required was bought by me. The lawyer said that if we divorced, the house would be under my name anyway, so it wouldn't matter. And if Chris's sister moved in, all I had to do was submit an eviction notice to her, considering she did not have my consent to live there. I felt a breath of relief upon hearing that nothing could harm me in any way. True to his word, Chris called me the next morning to tell me that his sister had moved in because I hadn't deposited the money back into our account. I didn't say much to him, which angered him, and he hung up the phone. Upon the lawyer's advice, I also made sure to record every conversation I had with Chris, as anything could be used as evidence if needed. All that was left to do was follow my plans of action. I say plans because there were 2 ways of how things could have played out. Either I hand Chris's sister, Candy, the eviction notice and she does or she does not move out, and I sue her. Either way, I was winning. I knew that the latter would end up happening, though, because Candy and I didn't gel well together. Candy always harbored this hatred for me. She always tried to one-up me in everything, to the point where if she knew I was going to do or wear something, she would do or wear the same thing, but more extravagantly, so she would have all eyes on her. She even tried to sabotage Chris and I's wedding that day. We had gotten into a large number of fights over the years, which resulted in me going low contact with her. I only ever interacted with her because Chris begged me to. He was very overprotective of her and always spoiled her senselessly. Of course, when she found out about all the things I had achieved, she was furious and upset that she wouldn't be able to upstage me in that area. So she took to trying to steal things from me whenever she did come over. Many times I would find a bunch of my expensive clothes, shoes, and even skincare products missing right after she came over. Chris would beg me to not say anything because Candy did live rather frugally, and he thought that her taking some things was just her way of having at least some lavish things. I didn't agree with that thought process, but I let it go. That only made things worse, so I banned her from coming over. That didn't make either Chris or Candy happy, but Chris couldn't stop me because I had told him just how much she had actually stolen from me. And he knew that Candy had done way more damage than what was repairable. So when she moved into my house, she called me to gloat about it. "Hello, Kate. What do you want? Remember how you banned me from coming over?" "Yes, because you stole thousands of dollars worth of things from me specifically." "Who cares about that? Guess where I am right now?" "Chris told me you moved in." "That's right. I have this huge and glorious house all to myself, something you don't have." "I think I still do have the house. I have already sent an eviction notice your way, and I'm giving you 3 days to move out." "Ha! An eviction notice? From you? Like I'll follow through on it. This is my brother's house. He told me I can stay here, so I will." "It's really not his house." Yeah. Marital property or whatnot, but he has all the power, and he decided this was the best thing to do." "That doesn't mean—" "Gosh, you really can't stop talking, can you? I see why my brother chose another woman. Ugh." "Well, okay. I have nothing more to say. Goodbye." I hung up the phone, but not before hearing Candy cackle on the other end. Well, if she didn't get out of there in 3 days, I was going to take her to court, and I was all lawyered up. Candy must have told Chris about our call because an hour after I had hung up the call on Candy, he yelled at me for having the audacity to send her an eviction notice. But much like the previous time we were on call, I said nothing. Within the next 3 days, 2 things happened. The first was that I had the divorce papers delivered to Chris, and he decided that he wanted to contest it. The second was that Candy still hadn't moved, so I had a court summons sent to her. Legally speaking, she was a squatter, and she was shocked to find out that the house was in my name and not her precious brother's. I was there when she got the summons, and she yelled at me for tricking her. I told her that I did no such thing. I had given her ample time, and I had warned her to move out, but she refused to listen. She had to face the consequences of her actions. In court, my lawyer presented all the evidence, the eviction notice, and recordings of phone calls that showed me telling Candy to move out, and her refusing to do so. In my state, squatting is taken rather seriously, so Candy was charged with a Class A misdemeanor and was given a fine of $500 to pay. The look of utter defeat and humiliation on her face was very satisfying to see. After years of holding back, to see it all culminate to this made the wait worth it. Chris and Candy approached me after things had settled down with Candy. They came over to Cass's house to hound me for doing what I did. "How could you do that to my little sister?" "Your little sister has been terrorizing my life for the past few years, and I shut that down in the best way possible. A decision you agreed with. Yet the second I grew a spine and told you no, you went right back and pulled her into this. That's your fault." "I only did that because she had nowhere else to go. She got evicted and I was doing her a favor." "So the house suddenly became an option because we were going to separate? If we weren't, would you have snuck her in?" Well, save it, Chris. I don't want to hear anything more from you. I'll just see you in court." "How is the house even in your name?" Your brother's name isn't on any of the documents, and I have been the one paying off the mortgage along with other repairs meticulously for the past 5 years. No matter how much your brother contests it in court, he won't get any ownership of the house. All he'll get is a much lighter wallet. You set him up. I just know you did. I didn't do anything. Your brother firmly believes in being the man of the house, so he should have taken up all the roles that I did. But he would much rather me do all the hard work while he reaped the benefits. Thank God that this is no longer going to be a problem for me. Goodbye, you two. I slammed the door in their face, and that was that. Over the next few weeks, Chris decided that since he wasn't going to get the house, he was going to fight over every single possession that we had, down to our dessert spoons. But I had no worries about it. Whatever furniture he wanted and claimed was his, I had all the receipts of who paid for what. He truly was going to only get what he contributed to, which was not much. While he was busy lobbying for all our things, I decided to send the screenshots of his inappropriate relationship with Leah to Chris's HR. Within a week, he was let go, and surprisingly, Leah wasn't. I found out through some of Chris's colleagues whom I was friends with that she had claimed that he had forced her into the relationship. Otherwise, he would not have given her projects. Needless to say, that relationship did not last after that. It took a couple of months, but the divorce was finalized and I was officially a free woman. I decided to throw myself into work, but not before celebrating for a long while with Cass for being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The last I heard, Chris and Candy were living together in some rundown apartment while still searching for jobs. Their parents send them both a small budget to live on, but aren't happy with what they did. I know about that because my in-laws called me to apologize for their behavior. Since I'm now free, I am looking forward to what more life has to offer me. There was one thing I learned through all of this. It's to never ever forget my worth, and also that I am a horrible person to mess with. Cheers!